to our federal union. It must be preserved.
Our union, next to our liberty, the most dear.
During Andrew Jackson's first term, he became bitter rivals with his vice president, John C. Calhoun. Calhoun routinely favored policies that were best for the South and cared little about how they would affect people in other regions. This stance is called sectionalism. President Jackson believed that this was a bad political strategy for keeping a country together. As we saw at their dinner party, Calhoun may not have wanted to keep the country together if it meant putting up with policies that Southerners opposed. Today, we'll be focusing on the tensions between regional interests and national lawmaking. Our learning goals are to define sectionalism, describe the three regions of the United States in the 19th century, explain why Northern and Southern politicians opposed each other on many issues, and describe the role that states' rights played in sectional debates. Sectionalism occurs when politicians prioritize policies that benefit a specific region of a country above serving the interests of all regions. In the 19th century, there were three distinct regions of states, each of which featured different characteristics. The North was industrial and technologically advanced. It had poor soil. There were fewer natural resources to support farming, which led it to develop a robust manufacturing industry and factory labor system. The South was rural and agrarian. The long growing season, fertile soil, and abundant water sources led the people to focus on farming cash crops like tobacco and cotton. Western geography wasn't as uniform. Cheap land, beavers, gold, coal, and unknown other natural resources promoted westward expansion. Manifest destiny and the American dream had led to a free spirit out west. Each region had different environments, different ideals, and different needs. Northerners competed with other industrialized places, like Great Britain, for business. Southerners focused on planting cotton and promoted policies that would benefit that industry. And Westerners had a low population and encouraged Easterners to migrate. Today, we'll focus on the North and the South. Why did they oppose each other so often? We've learned before that when new states applied to join the Union, the balance of power in the Senate came into question. Northern states began outlawing slavery as far back as the 1780s. No Southern states outlawed slavery before the 1860s. The sectional debate about the entrance of new states was what the federal government's role was in admission requirements. New states could join the Union with permission from Congress. But what requirements could they reasonably ask states to live up to? The Northwest and Southwest ordinances were an example of the federal government deciding whether certain territories would permit slavery. Federal restrictions were also present in the Louisiana Purchase. This reached its height in 1819 when Missouri applied for statehood. Missouri was north of the traditional Mason-Dixon line, suggesting it would be a free state. But many Southerners had moved into the area. When it applied for statehood, Missouri planned to be a slave state, which caused chaos in Congress. Henry Clay resolved the issue by suggesting the Missouri Compromise, in which Missouri would become a slave state and Maine would become a new free state at the same time. To avoid future conflict, the compromise set a line at Missouri's southern border and said all new states north of the line would be free states, while all new states south of the line would be slave states. The 1828 Tariff of Abominations was another example of sectionalism. Northerners wanted protective tariffs to limit importation and manufactured goods. Southerners and Westerners opposed these tariffs. because it cut into their profits and made luxury goods more expensive. Southerners like John C. Calhoun were so mad, they considered withdrawing from the Union and forming an independent Southern nation over the tariff issue. Jackson demanded that the Union be preserved, as the union between many states and regions was where America's strength came from. Congress compromised, lowering the tariff before any drastic actions were taken. Sectional issues routinely put Northerners and Southerners on opposing sides of policy debates. And each time a compromise was made, the tension grew, and it became more difficult to compromise in the future. An underlying component of these debates was the role of the federal government. During the 1790s, the Sedition Act was passed by Federalists, making it a crime to criticize the government in the press. Kentucky and Virginia adopted resolutions denouncing the law and refusing to enforce it, saying that when the federal government takes unlawful actions, states have the right to ignore them, an idea called nullification. In the tariff debate in 1828, John C. Calhoun took things a step further. He said that when the federal government enacts a sectional law, such as tariffs that benefited northern factories but not southern and western farmers, states could nullify that too. In other words, Calhoun believed that states should have the right to decide whether or not they would follow federal laws. As we learned in a nullification crisis PDF activity, Jackson pointed out that Calhoun's position was unconstitutional, and he said that if nullification was legal, there was no union. Hang on, you might say. The 10th Amendment says that power is not listed in the Constitution, like determining which states would allow slavery, should be left to the states and the people. Can Congress require new states entering the Union to be free states? Probably not. So what are states to do when they know the federal government is doing things that are unconstitutional? The confusing design of the Constitution created tension between the states and the federal government, and that created sectionalism. The United States had always been a nation comprising different regions. Different environments around the country led to the development of different economic industries and different political needs. Disagreements about policies created tension between politicians from different regions in Congress. At the root of it was confusion about whether states or the federal government had the power to make decisions about these issues. Slavery was the biggest divide. On one hand, the federal government is supreme. On the other hand, they are in charge of only certain things. Some people believe that states should have the power to decide for themselves whether to allow slavery, while others thought it was the duty of the federal government to keep the country together. Next time, be on the lookout for California's entrance into the Union and the compromise that must be made to prevent disaster. Until then, historians, remember to always be clever.
Hey, hey!